Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a great honor for me to be able to represent my country before such an august audience. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Chairman, members of the Rada. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to be invited to speak to you today at a moment marked by great opportunity as well as great uncertainty for the people of Ukraine. The stakes for your country and the expectations of your people have never been higher, because Ukraine, as you know better than I, has been here before. In the West, as here, we remember the Orange Revolution. Young men and women who filled the Maidan a decade ago, demanding that their voices and their votes both be respected. They refused to back down in the face of rigged elections, and they succeeded. But as history tells us and shows us, and as we know, Ukraine's leaders proved incapable of delivering on the promise of democratic revolution. We saw reforms put in place only to be rolled back. We saw oligarchs uninterested in change ousted from power only to return. Reformers persecuted, thrown in prison as political retribution, and the bright flame of hope for a new Ukraine snuffed out by the pervasive poison of cronyism, corruption, and kleptocracy. Nearly a decade later, that flame of hope was reignited by thousands of brave Ukrainians, some of you in this room, storming the Maidan, demanding a revolution of dignity. The world was transfixed. This time, they were not going to be denied the future that so many of your country have longed for so long. And the world was horrified when peaceful patriots were met by violence. They stayed in the Maidan day and night, facing down the Berkut in riot gear. For the first time since the Middle Ages, the bells of St. Mary raised the alarm, calling the citizens of Ukraine to reinforce their brothers and sisters on the Maidan. Tens of thousands heeded the call, bringing with them food, clothing, blankets, medical supplies, and their support. As the world watched, and I was literally on the phone with your former president, urging restraint. As the world watched, the final assault came. Amidst fire and ice, snipers on rooftops, the Heavenly 100 paid the ultimate price of patriots the world over. Their blood and courage delivering to the Ukrainian people a second chance for freedom. Their sacrifice, to put it bluntly, is now your obligation. You have a historic opportunity to be remembered as the Rada that finally and permanently laid in place the pillars of freedom that your people have longed for, yearned for so many years. I need not tell you, this is a joint responsibility. The President, the Prime Minister, the members of this august body, All of you must put aside parochial differences and make real the revolution of dignity. My country, too, was born of revolution, but the battle for our independence was underway well before the first shots were fired. It began when men of conscience stood up in legislative bodies representing every region, what was then colonial America. Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, very different interests, and declared in each of their regions the inherent rights of free people in different documents, in different language, but the inherent right to be free. They took a vast continent and a diverse people, what John Adams, one of our founding fathers and future presidents, once said, called, quote, an unwieldy machine. And they molded that unwieldy machine into a united representative democracy where people saw themselves as Americans first and citizens of their region second. But our union remained imperfect, our democracy incomplete. 70 years later, we went through a second testing during the American Civil War, which nearly tore our still young country asunder. Winning on the field of battle wasn't sufficient to unite our country, to end slavery and the regional differences we had, to grant former slaves citizenships and rights. The United States Congress assembled had to amend our Constitution. Individual members of that Congress lost their jobs, standing up to do the right thing. Everyone took real political risks to overcome entrenched opposition for the good of achieving a truly united States of America. In the end, it came down to extraordinary patriots, individuals putting their personal needs behind the needs of their nation, their narrow interest behind unity. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the President, the Prime Minister, every member of this body now faces a similar test of courage. To quote an early American patriot, Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls. These are the times that try men's souls. This is your moment. This is your responsibility. Each of you, if you'll forgive me for speaking to you this way in your body, each of you has an obligation to seize the opportunity that the sacrifices made in the Madon, the sacrifices of the heavenly 100, each of you has an obligation to answer the call of history and finally build a united, democratic Ukrainian nation that can stand the test of time. Edmund Burke said it best in 1774, speaking to his constituency in Bristol, England. Here's what he said: Parliament is a deliberative assembly of one nation with one interest, that of the whole, where not local purpose, not local prejudice ought to guide, but the general good. I respectfully suggest this is a standard for which each of you will be judged. This is the standard by which your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, your progeny, will judge whether or not you had the moral courage to put the general good above local prejudice.